Okay, so this is going to be a first, guys. I'm exploring a few options in terms of sharing some of my painting and the way I work, and I'm just wondering if you'd be interested in that. Looking at maybe setting up a Patreon site, and at the moment I wanted to just explore this over the next 4 to 6 weeks when I'm actually going to be looking at working on 4 of Tommy's War figures that Andy Belsey has converted and sent through to me. So I'm looking forward to that bit of a collaboration, and I just want to see what you're interested in, get a feel for what works, what is intriguing, what you would like to know more about. And this is all part of putting together a book for later next year. Not too sure who's having a look at this, but like I said, this is my first experiment, first time I've ever done live, and I'm going to have a look at where we're at. So this morning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick look at what's on my workbench, and it's a lockdown workbench, so it's all a little bit improvised, but I'll quickly show you through what I've got happening here. Okay, so nothing too flash. I've got me some paints on the floor, and it's a little portable bench and some odds and ends around me at the moment. On this bench I've got my painting tray. You can see my brushes. I've got a couple of little chocolate containers there, that's where I put water in. A bit of a no-nonsense painter. Pretty rudimentary in terms of some of the tools I've got. You can see my glasses there. I'll pop those on in a minute as I get into this little guy. And my painting dish, that's a Chinese takeaway dish. You know, if you've got any questions, please do ask, and it'll just give me a sense of what would be of interest. For some of you, my accent might be a little bit hard to understand, so I will try and talk a little bit slower and a little bit clearer to help you understand. My Optivisor, a little bit battle worn, that one. Gift from the missus a few years back, and there's a couple of projects on the bench, and we'll zoom in on those in a second. And I've got a couple of lamps, and I've got the room lamp on, and it's a bright sunny day, which I have to control. You can see with a bit of a louver going on there. Now I'm using my AK paints, big fan of those, but I want to try some of the life colours which Darren from Tommy sent over. Now remember, these are Andy Belsey's figures. Some of you might have seen, Andy's popped on the little sleeping guy, a little bit of a blanket here, just made out of foil, and a confirm this little chap, which is a conversion that he's done, a little chap, Matt Reading, you'll be all familiar with, one of Nino's earliest figures for Tommy's. Now this morning I watched Journey's End, which was a pretty harrowing film. However, good value to get me into the spirit of these guys living in their little foxhole. Okay, right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around. Like I said, just odds and ends there, nothing too flash. Also on a bit of sponsors product, I use these exclusively, little paper towels from KFC. Okay, just like them, nice and handy. In terms of that dish there, yeah, that's a fresh one, but unfortunately I had a little bit of an accident last night when I was putting out the AK base colour, and that squirted all over the place. A little bit of pain, a little bit on the wall, but managed to clean that off. And Suzanne, my wife, hopefully won't spot that one. And I'm just going to set you up the end here. Now, hopefully this is coming through all right. I'll have a look at some of these threads. I need to put my glasses on to see what people are saying. I think it's just people joining at the moment, right? Can you understand what I'm talking about, would be a question. Okay. That's me. Like I said, got a couple of blue tack. It's just using the old iPhone, so nothing really flash going on here. I just wanted to get a feel for what might be of interest and whether you think this is of value. Like I said, bring them on camera. Hi Mike Christian, nice to see you, mate. A few others joining them, Ross and Aussie, good to see you. And Suzanne, my wife, wave to you in the room next door. And Norio-san, fabulous to see you there, my friend. I can do a little wave, I think, on here. Just exploring that. I'll wave to everybody. Part of what I like doing is that whole sense of where we're actually connecting with people. Okay, not a lot of questions coming through. Hugh, hi, Boyle. Phil, yes, we understand, that's fabulous. Phil, where are you from, Phil? If you don't mind me asking. Okay, glasses, these guys are 3.5. Yep, 3.5. and I got a little optivisor. Hi Joni, how you going? Cuz, right, bit of family members joining there. Okay, just getting myself set up. Now look, honestly, this stuff is like watching paint drying, so you're probably not going to see a lot. But here's this little guy here, really like him, a bit too close to the camera. Let me just get that focused a bit better on him, hopefully I can. It's amazing how hard it is to get the right thing on the camera. Okay, so he's sleeping, he's too close. There he is. He's actually a conversion from a wounded guy, and the reason I haven't painted the middle of him, don't need to because he's got a blanket over the top of him. Okay, and you can see, for those that don't know how big he is, his head's the size of a pea. Now, I find those messages on there a little bit confusing in terms of where focus is, but I'm just going to pop this down here now. Looks like my vision set up, Christian. Yeah, good on you, mate. I was always amazed by Manjin when he was doing painting like this. Much more organised, a couple of extra cameras going on. I've got to worry about the blue tack getting into the little hole on the phone. But that's probably not your problem. Oh, Chicago, Phil, love the place. Was there in 2002, only time at Shep's place. The most special time ever. Went to the Chicago show, mate. Hi, cuz, Wayne. How you going, mate? Okay, so what I'm actually doing at the moment, and look, honestly, this really is just a test of what's happening. Got Michelle. Bonjour, Michelle. Just after doing a couple of little Frenchmen, I thought I'd try sharing this experiment. So what I'm doing at the moment, I've basically done his boots. I know they look dirty and they're supposed to, and I'm just going to be working on these little putties here. Now, normally I'd always start on the face, but for this guy, because I see a little bit of extra progress going on, I'm not going to, I'm going to get the uniform done first, a little bit quicker. Arigato, Norio. Okay, I'm not going to talk, I'm just going to fiddle away here. Let me see if I can get this into a better shot for you. That's part of the challenge, is getting everything sorted there. Maybe we do that bedspread. It is a bit rudimentary, isn't it? Okay. So, what I have, main thinner. This stuff, always use glaze medium. That's my primary thinning mechanism for all my painting. So pop that on slimy, eh? Pete Mossong, been a long time. And Darbs, how you going, mate? Thanks for the Anzac Day message, mate. Mind you, spend more time clicking and acknowledging people on here than you do getting into it, but trust that's all right anyway, guys. This is a what's called a 54mm. That's 5.4 centimeters or 2.5 inches tall. 1/32 scale figure that I'm working on at the moment. And all I do is put a little bit of a little drop of glaze medium on. Let me flick that around. Okay, that's the glaze medium there, and this mess of here, it just doesn't matter, right? I've got a little bit of Joe Sonia Payne's grey, I've got some burnt umber. This whole mess is a splurred out. What's interesting when you have a look at this, you can see the lumps in here of the paint. Hopefully you can see that it's quite lumpy. I actually use that to good effect, not that size lumps, but that will, you'll find all of the paint, the AK, these uniforms actually helps me a little bit with the texture. Okay. Jay, how you going, mate? Where are you from, man? I should know this, I suppose, with a few of these. Okay. That's a bit hopeless. That's a bit of the wall there. I'll turn the camera back round. This will also help me get a feel for what's useful for people when I'm doing this painting. Just try that angle. So I'm just going to dab. What I'm actually doing is putting a little bit of shadow, right? So I'm using a bit of this. It's a darker base colour, okay? So you can see this little guy here and that darker colour in the corner, okay? I think this will probably be more for novelty value, this particular one, but it's a starter in the experimentation, right? I don't know about you if you can actually see this, but it becomes a little bit forced in terms of what I'm doing. So I'm just really putting a few strokes on the brush. This is probably not the best education medium, just the way I've filmed it, but I can talk and explain as I go. Any of those modelers out there got specific questions, by all means pop them through. All I'm doing is putting a little bit of shadow on the front putty at the moment, and I'll work one putty at a time. Typically get one done and then I'll do the other one. Nothing too flash there, as we say in New Zealand. And I'll just do the front. All I'm doing is the darker shade that goes under the, goes under the back and under the front. I'm doing the front one because I want that to, that's got the most focus going on it. And you sort of see these little simple strokes that I'm using. That's the brush there. That's actually from Manjin, this brush. Okay. Hello Francisco, Antoine, and Chloe, dear. How are you going? Okay. Now this, yeah, this is Stylex. It's actually a Korean brush. Fabulous brushes, some of my favourite ones out, and I got those from Manjin. I'm sure you can get those from South Korean contacts. And that just gives me a, this is pretty rough in terms of what I'm doing at the moment, so there's nothing particularly flash in terms of this particular approach. So once I've got that, look, as quick as that, you know. Hi Francisco. You're not going to see much here, honestly. If you see at the top, you might be able to see this one's quite a bit lighter. Okay, all that's done is it's got this medium coat popped onto it. All right, and what I'm doing is I'm just working in there and in the back of that. Just put some dark colour on. Should show you the paints for those that aren't familiar with them. I'm using actually this World War I British Light. Okay, so that's the base coat I'm using. I want these to be a bit lighter than the rest of the uniform, and then I'm actually just using the simple dark coat. Big one, World War I British uniform shadow. Okay, won these in a competition a few years back. They last pretty well, and favourite. There's nothing that I'm doing that'll just, what I'm actually trying to do is just get into the main fold pattern. So putties tend to have a bit of a rib on the outside bottom edge, is the way these ones are done. And I'm just trying to get a bit of feel for and shape for those to start with. And I do keep this quite rough at the moment. Now the other thing I'm going to do, just to add to this, because I want to get the shape, is I'm going to use that Joe Sonia Payne's grey, and I'll mix a little bit of that. Let me just show you brush strokes going, nothing flash. Okay, I'm just taking a little bit of the Payne's grey on the scene. You can see it's all, this is a wet palette. This is bit of baking paper, bit of kitchen towel on the top, soaked with water. I also put a little bit of palm olive hand soap, which is a bit of antibacterial in, because what I find is I use this for quite some time and it does get a little bit mouldy. So all I'm doing is making a little bit of a black. So the Payne's grey with this burnt umber, which is a dark brown colour, and I'll make a darker shadow than the one that's actually supplied in the kit. So that's the one supplied in the kit, and you can see I'm providing it a little bit darker coming through. Okay, and there's old Keith Donnelly. Top of the morning to you, Keith. Or is it evening, is it? Hi, Phil, my bro, and John. Here you go, mate. Righto, back to and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the putty, the edges of the putties. So I'm just going to shadow those guys in. Literally is. And again, I'm just going for, this is quite a big brush that I'm using, but I'm just trying to get the effect. I'll actually come back with a lot more detail later on. Now, I wouldn't be able to do a full live session because you'll find it I'm a very slow painter typically. A lot of fiddling around. We might see that later on with the Patreon service or whatever, I'm not sure. And all I'm doing is just edging a dark line under each putty. And putties were like a rolled up bandage that went around the guys' bottoms of their trousers over the tops of their boots, just to protect the lower parts of the leg. And these are muddy, dirty, and there's the ones on here that Nino's sculpted is quite is a little bit damaged and worn. This was actually a wounded soldier that Andy's converted very nicely. Coming through. Now I've already done those boots, so I just want to get the edging of them so they're overlapping the top of the boots. Mate, Keith, 1:45 in the morning. I think you probably should be going to bed. Okay, but hey, look, it's lockdown, so what else have we got to do? That's what the wife said anyway. How you going, Craig? Good to see you, mate. Trust you had a good Anzac Day yesterday. Okay, while I'm here doing this, I might as well do this other putty. Okay. It's a bit of a thinking process as you work your way through this, right? So you don't start a figure knowing exactly what you're going to do as you go along. And so I suppose I'm sharing a bit of thought process as I'm doing. Wondering if you might be interested in my thought process. I expect this would take potentially take me about an hour before I'm happy on one of these putties. Maybe both of them over the space of an hour or two. And the catch is I don't really think the video quality is that sharp enough for you to see the sort of detail of what I'm doing. And maybe I'm just sort of moving around and just sort of watching an old chap sort of do his best on the painting. I like these little chocolate dishes that I use for water because they're like 4 different little reservoirs. You know, I can have a sort of a cleaner one than the others. So I might just flick onto that just as I'm thinking through. Okay, so I've got, you know, this, as you can see, there's a sort of really clean one. The others are a bit dirtier. And I just sort of work my brush through them over time. And back to the KFC towel. Just to wipe that off. Now, I don't know if that's actually interesting, but just in case you were asking. Hi Brett, how you going, mate? Good to see you. And fill up right, back to this. Now what I've done, and I know that colour's probably not helping you, but that sort of, you can sort of see, maybe you can't, but you see these little ribs. So I've just done a dark line under each of those using that Payne's Grey and burnt umber mix. That'll provide some definition in there, and that should be enough shadow. You don't always, you know, I only use black where I need to. I've used a little bit of black on this undercoating around here. Most of this is going to be in shadow because it's actually under a little blanket. Okay, so I'll just show you this little foil blanket that Andy's put together here. This will just fit over the top of them, right? And if anybody's seen Journey's End, and I just watched, you know, this fabulous shot of this sort of little guy having a sleep in his hut. He's a young officer, just arrived, and he's got a blanket, little grey blanket, red edging on the top that'll come over later on. That's probably be the most work that I do on that, as well as his little face. Okay. We're going to call that time. I just wanted to sort of experiment with this, the first one, and see what sort of response and reaction. Nice to see some of the family and whānau there, and good to see a few people from across the globe. If you're interested in seeing a bit more of this stuff, I might do some more tomorrow. Can't guarantee the old photo setup will be any better, but we'll just see how that goes, and we might be able to flash it up a little bit later on. Great talking to you. I'll have a quick scan through the notes, see if there's anybody there. Craig, you mate Andy. How you going, Andy? Good to see you, mate. Righto. If you want to leave a message about what was useful, if not, groundwork would be of interest to me. Yeah, I don't do a lot of groundwork here, to be honest. Most of my box art stuff has a just a pin in it. Sits under. It's wrapped up and sent home like that. I do some little bodgy groundwork, which I could show you later on. Okay. Was different to say the least. Yeah, Anzac Day certainly was, Craig. The old stand at dawn. I did a did a lone vigil on the beach. Keith, yeah. Late sleeper, eh? Right. Good on you, yeah. Dubs, you take care, mate. We'll see you all later, team. Thanks very much for spending a few minutes with me here today. Bye-bye.